My name's Shan Robinson, and I'm 14. I haven't really done a lot in my life because, well, I'm only 14. I'm not a philosopher, and I definitely haven't given birth. But I do, and I don't have a story to share, but I do have this really cool clicker and a message. On November 22nd, 2016, a 13-year-old named Tyrone Unsworth committed suicide. His suicide was fueled by severe bullying about his sexuality, and before he took his life, Tyrone had admitted that he was struggling a lot with his sexuality. He had posted a series of disturbing images on Instagram, along with the words, "If I just killed myself, would anyone cry? Would anyone care? I wonder if they'd even notice." Committing suicide means that all the cries for help have gone unnoticed. It means that that person has exhausted every other possibility, and the only way for the situation to get any better is to end it entirely. Imagine how bad the bullying, discrimination, or exclusion must be for someone to want to take their own life, to end the possibility of a happier future because of a terrible present. LGBTQ+ stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and more, such as pansexual, asexual, agender, bigender, trigender, and various others. These are all sexualities or gender identities that are not heterosexual, someone who's attracted to the opposite gender, or cisgender, a gender identity that society sees appropriate for one sex. All around the world, people who identify as any of these are constantly being discriminated against and left feeling that they are abnormal, or they're too afraid of what society will think to come out in the first place. In a study conducted by YRBS, Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance, of 1,032 students aged 13 to 19 in Boston, Massachusetts, 10% of which identify as LGBTQ+, found that LGBTQ+ youth scored significantly higher than heterosexual youth for symptoms of depression and suicidal and/or self-harming thoughts. 6% of heterosexual youth said that they have had suicidal thoughts before, compared to the 30% of LGBTQ+ youth. That's 5 times more than heterosexual youth. The same data from Massachusetts says that 45% of LGBTQ+ youth also experienced having their personal things either stolen or purposefully damaged. Only 29% of heterosexual youth could say the same. Data from YRBS in both Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. show that LGBTQ+ youth were also much more likely to skip school in the past month compared to heterosexual youth. LGBTQ+ youth were more than 2 times as likely to skip school than heterosexual youth because they felt unsafe at school. The percentages of students who skipped school in Massachusetts are 26% LGBTQ+ and 11% heterosexual. And in Washington, D.C., 20% of LGBTQ+ youth skipped school in the past month, and only 6% of heterosexual youth skipped school. I have a story to share with you. It's not my story, but it's a really moving story. Dylan N. is a gay male from Nevada. He was bullied for a long time in high school, and when he told one of his vice principals about the bullying, she simply laughed at him and told him not to talk about his sexuality in front of other students. He asked to transfer schools, and the district put him in a school with students who had poor academic records or behavioral problems. Dylan said that the principal there told him that he wouldn't have him acting like a faggot at school. Dylan realized that there was no place where he could get a proper education. He transferred again when he was 15 to a school where the teachers and security guards stood by while he would get beaten up by other students. He asked to transfer schools one more time, but the district turned him down. Dylan said, "What they did was they put me in the adult education program. Their justification was I would be around people who are much more accepting. What they didn't tell me was I would have no chance of getting my high school diploma." But that's just in the USA. Globally, there are currently 73 countries criminalizing homosexuality, and at least 7 countries where same-sex marriage is punishable with death. Because of the fear of reporting discrimination against LGBTQ plus individuals to the authorities, thousands of cases go unnoticed. According to the information that is collected, between 2008 and 2014, 1,612 transgender people were murdered in 62 countries. And in Brazil, 310 people were murdered in 2012 alone, where homophobia or transphobia was the motive. This pie chart shows the reason between 5,922 hate crime incidents reported in 2013. Sexual orientation is the second largest motive, and gender identity is second from last. Gender identity and sexual orientation should never become a reason for a crime, not to mention a major motive behind it. Discrimination against LGBTQ plus individuals may have something to do with religion. Some people strongly believe that same-sex marriage is against their religion, and men and women were made for each other. In order to find out the connection between religion and sexuality, I interviewed 4 people. A high school student at ISK, participant 1, who identifies as bisexual, a relative, participant 2, who identifies as pansexual, another relative, participant 3, who also identifies as bisexual, and a friend, participant 4, who has a 4-year-old transgender daughter. When asked the question, "Do you feel your culture or religion affects your sexuality?" participant 2 said, "Because I am a Christian, I find myself hiding my true self. I tend not to mention that I'm not heterosexual, and because I'm in a heteronormative relationship right now, it's very easy to do so. I'm kind of scared of the reaction I would get from other church members." Participant 3 said, "I grew up in a strongly Christian family, but after a while I started to disagree with a lot of the beliefs because the Christian church is largely homophobic. I had to choose between the church and my sexuality, and I chose to leave the church because I won't allow anyone to change who I am." As you can see, both participants 2 and 3 felt largely out of place in their church just because of their sexuality. Participant 3 even had to leave their church. Imagine if you had to leave your church, mosque, or temple just because you're straight. Despite the constant discrimination that LGBTQ plus individuals face, progress has been made. Virginia, a state in the USA, is a state with strong beliefs and traditions. Despite this, a transgender woman named Danica Rome has recently been elected as a U.S. state legislator. She even beat one of Virginia's longest-serving lawmakers. He had passed the law saying that transgender women had to use the bathroom of the sex they were born with. Virginia voted her as leader. Even though it is a tough and challenging journey to change a whole society, if Virginia could do it, eventually every other country criminalizing homosexuality can do it too. Even though, I provided statistics, research, and real stories. I asked the questions. Now it's up to you to answer them. Thank you.